Okay, the recording started. Again, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. A few words, what's going to happen today on our workshops and what the workshop are. So we're going to have this session regularly each Wednesday at the same time to have a bit of practice covering the recent topics that you have learned recently. So today we're going to cover such topics as components, directives, and pipes. So I hope that everyone is already knowing them, what for, what's the purpose. But in case if you missed something, don't worry, we'll cover some aspects during our today's session. And before we start, just a few requests for you. So if during the session you see that something is not quite clear for you, or you would like to learn more, to comment on whatever I'm doing right now, so please do not hesitate. You can stop me at any time to ask, to comment, well, just to say something in case if you need a special attention and answer for your question. Okay, so what we're going to do for today's workshop. So usually I used to write some sort of application from scratch if I had like the workshop scheduled for me, especially write something from scratch for to begin as the fully featured application. But for now, well, let's focus on the little things because, well, I believe that could be quite tough to learn Angular. So we're going to do with the simple stuff. Okay, now I have the following app that I've created recently by using reusing the materials that I had. So maybe some of you already seen it, but I believe that for someone it could be quite new. What do we have here? Just a little title and the cards. So actually this is our news field. That's displays recent news. We can post, we can like this looks like the following. So you might be noticed that I'm using Angular material here. And during your home assignments, I believe that's most of you will use Angular material to avoid routine work for creating a markup. In case if you don't quite familiar with Angular material, so let's take a look at how can we get started, just in case. In case if you already know, well, you can stop me at the moment, but let's proceed. Okay, so in case if you haven't remember, we're jumping to the getting started section. To add the Angular material to your application, you simply use the ngCli to add a new dependency to your project. Okay, my project is already Angular material enabled. So by running this command, you'll have like the following prompts that is described right here. The prompts are the following: which theme you would like to use, whether you need to enable animations. My suggestion is to agree with the defaults and just proceed. So after running this command, since it's the Angular enabled, everything will be configured. So you don't need to do extra steps. So that's why I recommend to use Angular material, because it's simple to work with Angular applications. Okay, so we enable this library in our application. So how can we use it? If we refer to the component sections, you see that there are a bunch of the components. And let's say we want to display some sort of card like here. Okay, so I use simple card to display one single post. To do so, I found this component in Angular material library and how to use it. Okay, so it states that we need to use the following component to draw the following card. But before we also need to add the following statement to our main module. So if you remember, Angular is a modular network. Oh, sorry, is modular framework. It uses its syntax for performing imports of dependencies, exporting dependencies for your own module, so you can create your own modules. For now, what we need to know is that there is a file that is called app module ts. That is our entry point and is used for importing third-party dependencies and declaring all the components that is used in our application. So to start using a simple card, we're adding the following module to the import section, and starting from that, we can use our card component right away. And the same is used for every single component from Angular material. Whenever you want to add something, it could be dialog, let's say form field. Yeah, the same, you jumping right to the API section, and here is the module that should be imported into your app module. So why do we need such distribution? Okay, the main purpose is performance. Instead of loading the entire material framework inside your application, we use just only those parts that are really matters. So we don't want to see all of the list of the components to be loaded when we're implementing the application. We only want to see some bunch of them. So we import it. Okay, so I believe that's should be enough if you want to get started with Angular material and your further home assignments. So I believe that's will be quite useful. Okay, but let's now focus on our main app. For now, let's have a brief overview. We don't have so much in terms of logic and markups. All we have is one single component that represents our entire feed and one TypeScript interface that represents each of our posts. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, just in case, want to remind you, you can stop me at any moment to ask something or to comment on what I'm doing. We're going to add a couple of new functionalities. Let's say, okay, we see the following cards, but what if we want some extra posts or to filter them? Okay, to do so, we definitely need some sort of forms. Okay, and it's quite common topic or mistake when I was checking the home assignments previously. So in case if you have a couple of inputs, it's a good idea to use form tag to group all of them. Okay, so I have like pre-prepared something. I'm going to use it. Okay, so let's have the form tag. This is the native one. And we're going to have a bunch of inputs. If you see that there is like the title and the description. Yeah, for now, everything is broken just because we haven't set up the inputs as it's expected. Another way to handle the forms, we use like the following two-way data binding, ng model. Later on, within the forms lecture, you will learn how to deal with the forms in another way using reactive forms. And usually reactive forms is most common used way to organize the forms in the application. For now, for simplicity, let's focus on the following. So to create a new post, definitely we need we need to describe how it's look like. Okay, we're going to create a new field inside our component that is called new post. It's gonna be an arbitrary object. Well, it should have some sort of title. It will be empty, and the text that is also empty. For now, it's enough because we don't need any other fields, but okay, we can describe it like 0. Okay, let's stop it now. And if we want to bind our form fields with this newly created fields, we're doing the following. So this is going to be text, and this is going to be title. And let's fix the placeholders. And we definitely need some sort of button with the type submit. Okay, just in case I just added the following attribute to have this button raised. For now, we're facing the issue with rendering, and it states that if we use the form like this, each input should have the attribute name. Okay, let's add it. It's gonna be name and text. Okay, now it looks good, except of the button. But okay, let's leave it because I don't have a text. Okay, so we have our form to create a new post. What we're going to do next? The next thing, we need to call some method that will add the new post to our array. To do so, we're going to create the new method inside our component that is called add post. It accepts nothing, returns void. Okay, so what we're gonna do is to add the new item to our array. Here could be a catch, but in a moment, we will sort out it later. So this new post will be pushed along with the rest of the items. 0 is like false, and here should be ID. Let's assign ID as this post's length plus 1. So it's gonna be 3. Okay, and we need to trigger the following method once we are ready. To do so, if you remember from the lecture, we could natively listen to the events. So instead of forgetting the elements from the DOM by using query elements or something like that, we could natively use the mechanism that is called binding. If you remember, binding could be property and event. In our case, we want to listen to events, so that's why we're using event binding, which can be used for every single event. The events could be the Angular one that we've created by ourselves, or it could be native. So we're going to invoke the following method that we've just created. So let's find out whether it's working. Okay, so see, that's the new post has been created. That is quite awesome. So we haven't like resetting the yeah, we could reset this form in case if we need so. To do so, we just need to set the empty strings whenever we add the post, or we could refer the form from the template and call reset from here. That's quite interesting. Okay, let's try it out. Yeah, so actually what we can pass here is the expression. So we can use multiple invocations here, but this is not recommended. Let's keep the single invocation because otherwise it could be significantly difficult to maintain. But just for demonstration, see what's happened here. We created an internal variable. So in order not to confuse you, I can use another naming. And in the following case, it will look like the following. So let's see whether it works. See, the forms actually resets to default. Yeah, how it's possible? So natively, if you get the following element through the document, query selector, blah, 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 and whenever you found the element, the native method that is called reset could be invoked. So this code, the reset invocation will be working in regular JavaScript as well. So here we create the internal variable that represents the following element. So in case if we need to refer to it somewhere later on within the template, we can just refer to this variable by using its name. So just in case this is not accessible by default from the component class, like this. Okay, so post form, we see that it's not defined. Let's have a bit refactoring. So I don't want to see like multiple invocation here, but what if you want to use the following form from your component class? To do so, we need to introduce a new syntax by using the decorator ViewChild that will grab our element and store it in our component class. So to do it, we refer to the following name, and this is type of the element ref. Okay, for now it's not quite used. It has no initializer, but okay, why not? To prevent this, we just add in the exclamation mark. And let's reset the form within one single method. Post form. It has one single property that is native element. Just in case if it's not found, the post form could be null. So if we remove it from our template, it will not be found and it will set to null. Okay, so this is the native element. But we see like nothing here in terms of code completion. But we can see that the element ref actually is generic. So what if we pass like the generic type here, and we see that the reset method is available in terms of code completion. So I'm going to remove this one, and let's see if it's actually works. Okay, so let's recompile it. Title, text. Okay, looks like everything works correctly. So this is the method. How can you access the element from your component class just in case you need it? Additionally, ViewChild could be used not only for accessing the elements that we marked with such internal variable. It could be used also to get all the class references. Okay, so how can we demonstrate it? If we refer to the mat form field, okay, that has the declaration. Well, I need some sort of component from the material that could be used for our experiments. Okay, let's see. We have the API. API also consists of class description. Okay, what we have? We have some sort of methods. Okay, we don't need to have a fully working example, but to demonstrate how it actually works, we can refer to the mat card component. Okay, so if we want to do so, instead of ViewChild, we use ViewChildren, because ViewChild, it's like a query selector that gets only one single element, the first occurrence. And this is query selector all. And we want to refer to our component, which is mat card. But we're referring to a component not by the selector, the tag name. We use the class name. Mat card. So if I'm not mistaken, so let's take a look at the documentation. So this is our class actually. Mat card harness. And it has the type very least of mat card harness. If we iterate over down, it has the method for each. So it's not the array, but the the list of the cards. It is iterable. So in case if it lacks of some necessary methods from the array, you could easily transform it to array. Why not? Let's see what we have. Card, and we have bunch of methods that actually are described inside the component class. So if we get to the description, we'll see that this component has a bunch of methods. And if you want to access all of them, you can use the following ways to do so. So actually, when we perform ViewChildren, we accessed the component instance. And if you want to do some action from the outside, you could easily do that. Okay, so this is just for demonstration that we have such ability. Great. So we created the functionality that allows us for adding a new post. So what if we want to filter them or to apply some sort of search? Okay, that's possible. And most likely you already know how to do so. So we're going to add, so in terms of the search field, it will be enough just to add one single form field in case if we don't want to have the entire form submit handling. But in case if you do the full form and you configured submit functionality properly, it will behave the following. I hit the space button and the submit is triggered. So it's quite important to have semantic view of the elements. So that's why That's how the submit works. So by hitting enter, actually the button with the type submit has been clicked, which triggers the submit event that is handled by the Angular. For now, let's have the following. I already have the search criteria right here. And how can we do so? We want to search our posts by the title. So we can use both ways. We can listen to each input to have the separate member of the component that will handle all the search criteria and do the filtering of the array entire time. But the most preferable way to do so is to use one of the structures, one of the building blocks that is called pipe. So actually pipe is used for transforming any data. And to put it much simpler, this is the function that could be called from the template. So if we refer to one of my examples, so maybe you recognize like the following. So I was doing this example for the lecture. Let's focus on that. So actually, this is about transforming the data by any of the means. Yeah, the common use case is filtering, but as you can see, it also could be used for anything, for formatting data, for transforming it. And here, like we have the filtering example. So let's have the same in terms of the pipes. And also pay attention that I organized all the building blocks, including interfaces, into separate folders. For now, we're having only one single module, that is submodule. But in future, you definitely need to create a new modules for your application. For now, we're just creating the following folders inside one app module. So if you're familiar with the MG it's quite simple process. Let's create a new folder, and that will be our search pipe. Why not? Okay, so this is how we added our new pipe, and I believe it will appear on my IDE. Okay, that's has been added. Okay, what we're gonna do here. So the new pipe has been created, and to proceed, we need to describe it. The first argument inside the transfer method that is essential within the pipe takes the value that is going to be transformed. So if we refer to the example one more time, the value is what stays before the pipe symbol. So this is the value, and the pipe could accept several arguments that are divided in the following way. So let's do that. Yeah, actually, it's already did within the REST operator. So from the description, we see that it could accept any number of arguments as we want. But for now, let's stick with the single one since we want to see the search results. So this is our criterion, and this is string. By the value, for now, we're keeping this post. So let's have everything in the right place. We don't want to work with unknowns or any's. We want anything to be typed because we're working with TypeScript. Yeah, it's definitely will benefit you a lot. So if you might be noticed every single file that is created in Angular has the common naming convention. So if you create a component, so please, it's used, the component is in the file name. If I create a model or interface, okay, so the same should be here. Usually I create the models directory and put everything here. And every file has the same structure. Okay, so we're dealing with the pipe. What if we want to filter all the results? By using the native method. So this is one single post. Let's see if it includes criterion. Okay, for now it will be enough. It will not gonna work because it's for now it's quite case sensitive. I haven't added this pipe to my uh, to my template, so let's do that. We're adding the pipe right here. And we want to insert the search criteria. So put like in the following way, and we use search criteria as our argument. So for now, our search will be quite case sensitive. Yeah, you see that I put everything in lowercase and I haven't found anything. So you could handle it like the following. So puts the lowercase and the criteria also to lowercase to make our search case insensitive. So now, if we are going to search for something, yeah, it works as expected. And in the same way, if you want to filter something, let's say if you want to see only the posts that are marked as liked, you can use pipes right away to achieve such results. So it doesn't mean that the pipe could accept only one argument. It could, the filtering criteria could be complex. And if you have some complex filters, let's say the value of the title, the value of the following field, instead like of having multiple arguments, I propose you to have one single argument that will be object. So you could use another interface to describe the form of your searching criteria. I believe that could be useful in your future home assignments. So if I'm not mistaken, you'll also like have, so let's see, we have, so somewhere we have the link to your home assignment. Yeah, and you definitely will see that your future application will have not only the search bar, but also some sort of other filtering criteria. I'm just trying to find where it's situated to demonstrate. Okay, maybe it's right here. Okay, so this is the sorting field, or by what, or sentence. So yeah, in case if you have some complex logic, you could use one single argument. In case if not, okay, so you could create this another pipe that will be used for sorting, for transforming, and so on. Okay, so we're already half an hour past. I believe that everything is quite clear. But anyway, in case if you want me to propose something on to comment on something or to ask, so please do not hesitate. Try to speak and try to make this session productive for you, because here the primary goal is to make everything clear. Well, I believe with the basic functionality, that could be quite enough. In case if we want to create, okay, I see the raised hand, so let's stop here. And let's hear what we have in the comment.
Do you hear me?
So,
So my question is about element ref, and according to the official documentation, it's not recommended to use element ref because of security problems. Is it possible to use something else instead of element ref?
It's not recommended to use element ref, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if you could be so kind, could you please share the link with others? Because that's what didn't quite remember everything actually. So yeah, usually like element ref was used on a regular basis in case if you need to do something in terms of manipulating with the elements. Yeah, as the alternative, I would say it's well, where element ref actually appears. It appears when we are dealing with the variables like this. If we need to take the following elements. The alternatives could be the following. So previously we used the view children to get all the components by its name. So if we do the same, we will not occur element ref. So only component instance will be used instead of the element ref. So, well, by the way, thank you for sharing because, well, I haven't heard actually about the following. Yeah, and in most of the examples, to demonstrate the functionality of directives, I use like the element ref, the renderer, yeah. So, I will try like to get more information on that and in case if I manage it, I definitely will share it with you. Yeah, but thank you for highlighting. Okay, having one more question. We'll read it aloud for anyone, so it will be here in the recording. A component that has view encapsulation none will inherit styles only from components that have view encapsulation none and view encapsulation shadow DOM. Interesting question about the styles. Well, the view encapsulation none actually means that the styles that are in the global namespace could be used for styling. So let's have a quick example. We have the following class, which is the form field. To put it simply, I just want to have some experiments and okay, the following. It will take the full width. If I try to do so from the global style sheet right here, it will not work. Sorry, I haven't removed this. Okay, so so maybe the form field class is like used in materials. So let's pick another name. Custom. Like the following. Okay, that's gonna be interesting. Add form field custom. So maybe that's not good example because we referring to the Angular material. So let's maybe apply the following to any other elements. That's we're going to have following from field custom. Let's say let's have the background color. Just an example. Okay, that will be enough. Yeah, you see that's when I moved the following style from outside the component style sheet, it will stop applying. That's because every component has some sort of namespace. So that's the styles will not intersect each other. So whenever we applied the class name to our component, it's actually tries to apply the styles by using the namespace. I'm going to return back my previous style. And if we inspect it, actually, all the styles that are defined inside a component style sheet use the following selector to ensure that only the style only for that particular component will be applied. If we do the following, so for now I'm going to remove again and to ensure that everything works as expected. If I'm going to do the following, so encapsulation, the encapsulation none. Yeah, and you see that's actually it's caused another side effect. Okay, form field custom, but again, as we see, that's the form field custom has not been applied, but it should be. So encapsulation none. That goes really interesting. So maybe it's not because the global styles, so it's about the components, if I'm not mistaken. It's goes quite interesting because well I forgot of some of the aspects. So the question is about inheritance of the styles. So let's put this question to the next time. I'm going to put all of them to my list in case if I found the proper answers. I'm going to post it to announcements. But yeah, the main idea of having view encapsulation is to preserve the styles intersections. When I added the view encapsulation none, you see that's like everything broke apart just because somewhere in some global namespace, I have another styles that's actually caused the following behavior. That's not quite good. Well, let's return our behavior back and go forward. Yeah, sorry for not answering it right now. I know that's it's could be essential, but I would like to ask to give me some time. We'll return back on this topic because, well, it's not quite possible to remember everything. Okay, but yeah, in terms of Shadow Dome, yeah, I also believe you're familiar with that. This is used like in case if you want to encapsulate the entire structure from the outside, which is commonly used in the web components. That's really interesting because, well, previously when I was experimenting with the styles encapsulation and something like that, so I'm pretty sure that I'll encounter the same behavior, but for some reason, as you see, it doesn't work. Yeah, I don't know, and actually I have no idea why, unfortunately, for some reason. Okay, so let's return back. But that's really interesting. where we stopped. So we have like our basic functionality. Okay, we can create posts, we can filter them. But the main problem here is that we have everything in a single place. So actually, our feed component is responsible for doing lots of stuff. It is responsible for managing the input data. Also, it's managed like how the data will look like. And it's also responsible for creating and searching for the new post, at least to handling the key inputs of the user. So how are we going to deal with that? And that's the topic for like handling the components interaction. Again, we're referring to the bindings. Just for you to remind, how we can create those bindings. That's what the bindings are. The binding is whenever you want to pass something to that particular element, you use property binding, and it's looks like the following. But yeah, actually, it's a two-way. But if you want to use just property binding, uh, we use brackets to refer to the property that we want to pass some info to it. In case if we're dealing with events, we use parentheses and specifying the name of the event that is going to be listened. So binding is to use some sort of events or property to handle it or to pass something. Okay, our main goal for now is to structure our components somehow and make the components interaction possible. To do so, let's create a new one. So, by the way, how we're going to decouple our things? Let's say we want to have the search bar, our list, and the form that will be used for handling creation of a new post. So whenever let's create a bunch of new components. So we agreed that we have the search bar and post functionality. And let's move everything that is related to this or that particular functionality to our so I added to the wrong place, but I believe we could easily move it to the components. And I hope everything will be refactored as well. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Great. We're going to move the markup for the search bar right here. It uses the search criteria as the property to bind. We're going to move it right away to our newly created component. And here is our search bar. And to inform that something has been changed, there are two ways. First, we could use the event binding to listen to every input. And we definitely need to call something. To do so, we need to introduce our new event in the search bar component. To do so, we need output decorator. Let's name the event as search. To do so, each time we need to create a new instance of event emitter. And please pay attention that there are like several places where the event emitter could be. the most important, that event emitter should be imported from the Angular core. This is the correct one. So we could call emit right from the template, but I propose not to do so, and create each time the methods inside the class component. Why so? Because whenever you want to test or debug something, or you want to do some preliminary logic before firing the event, you definitely need the methods. I usually use like the following: on plus the event name. Emit is search criteria. Okay, see the message. Alex in Discord is saying that he can join the meeting. Could you please check that new people could join? Well, actually, I haven't implied any restrictions, so let's take a look. So Alex, okay, come join the meeting for today's channel. For some reason, nobody accepted my request to join MST, neither as guest, not logged in user. Well, I could try to do the following. Meeting info. Well, I have no idea why he cannot join. But I see that lots of guests that's not have their own account, and uh, well, unfortunately, I have no idea what could happen. Yeah, it could be on his side. I'm in doubt that it's on my end. Great. So we're going to call on search. It will be fired each time that we type something here. Okay, and definitely need to go back. Okay, now we see the problem. That we still need to store such criteria each time we fire it. It could be fired not by only typing, but submitting whatsoever. There is also an option in case if you have your own pipe that contains necessary logic and you want to use this pipe in your components. Well, that's possible. So we can use it right away. I'm just going to have the copy of the posts, and let's handle it as the following. And let's create the new methods on search. And if you want to use our pipe inside our components, we use constructor. And the following syntax will appear in the future modules about services. So what is going to happen here? It's called dependency injection. Just for your reference, but yeah, this is native like TypeScript feature that allows to do as the following. Instead of doing so, like assigning manually the argument of the constructor, we can use the access modifier. Yeah, and this, we're going to invoke this pipe search pipe, transform. Yeah, and we can use the pipe right inside our components. Yeah, before we move on, we need to bind to the property and to access the argument that is passed to the emit methods of the event emitter, we use the following, like dollar events. Let's see if it actually works. It doesn't work just because we didn't add the search pipe to another section that will allow us to use the pipe inside the component. So we need to use the provider section. Okay, I am going to stop here. See, a dump component shouldn't have any lifecycle hooks, only input and output. Not exactly. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't have any lifecycle hooks, for example. Lifecycle hook refers to the change detection mechanism. Something could change in terms of input bindings, and your component should reflect to it somehow. You need to like remap your input value into some other structure. And for doing so, for reflecting to the latest changes, you could use lifecycle hooks, but most likely you just need to pass the data inside your components. So we're talking about DAP or presentation components. If you remember from the lecture, I distinguished two types of components. If you see like from the English examples, first is a smart component, which the example of it is feed, and it's used only for everything actually, for managing the data, for rendering, it contains the logic. An example of the representation component is the card that is used only for firing events and representing the data. Okay, so we're a good way to go. So the only needs we have two more candidates for being moved out of the feed component. So let's focus on the following one. So this is the add post. It needs to have the following property, add post. So this is our new property, and what we have here. Okay, we can use the logic and definitely we need to put something outside. That's why we need to output. Remember that's importing from the Angular core. Since we have the duplicate, so that's why I'm keeping this following structure of the methods. Event emitter. By the way, event emitter could be generic. In case if you're firing something and you want to have an exact type of it, if we go back to the search bar, see that for now, event emitter assumes that the value which is passed to this emitter is any. If we need to enhance our typization, we could use generic. In this case, whenever we refer to the value, we see that exactly this is the string, just because we specified this as the generic. Okay, what we're going to do here. So we have our form. We're going to call on add post. And we're going to emit this. And then a bunch of new values that we need to distinguish somehow how the ID could be added. Yeah, definitely. That's not the regular activity on the front end, because actually ID is being assigned on the backend part. But we can use an extra property to distinguish from where we are counting our posts. Just for example, to introduce the new property that's can be bind, we use input decorator, and the name is like last ID type number. Yeah, okay, we don't have any initializer or constructor, but okay, we don't care. We know that every single time the value will be provided. So this is the search bar app get post. So this is our component. What we're gonna do, use the last ID property that we've just created for passing okay, this is the last ID, I believe. Last one. But I don't recommend doing so. Remember, any logic should not be present inside the template, like here, like here. That's a great idea to create a separate member in your component. Like this should be a separate method, and this should be a separate member. But this is just for your reference. So we're going to recall the add post. And for now, it will accept the post that is passed to the events emitter. This argument of the type post, we're just going to push it right away. Okay, and since the ViewChild is not actual anymore, we need to move this logic to here and to move it from here. Okay. So for now, yeah, and again, generics. Now events sees that this is any. Remember the generics? Let's add it. And in this case, yeah, it also will highlight that something goes wrong and it misses some properties. Okay, let's have it. Now it looks good. Yeah, and it just pushes the new one, the new post to our list. You. Okay, great. It works as previously. But now our feed components is a bit clear because it's used for manipulating the data, and it's used as the entry point for anything. Okay, and this is our last candidate for being moved to another place on a separate component, actually. So how we're going to do, so we need to decompose our components from each other and also use I'm going to do like the following because, well, previously I was presenting the decomposition of the component just for saving your time. I'm going to do so right away. So yeah, definitely the post component is not included into declaration. Okay. So the post is right here. Okay. Post. Okay, we don't need to pass anything here because we already know that we're working with one single item. And we're going to just add the following iterator. And we also need to bind to our events that we've just created. Let's do the following. Okay. Now this will be removed. Yeah, definitely it has something goes wrong because we didn't use filter posts. And return back in terms of styles. Yeah, we definitely post. It had width, its own width. It's margin top. Okay. Okay, now I understood why it's going so. Okay, filtering works. But the submission, for some reason, is not. Let's find out. So we pushed the new post right away. Yes, so maybe, as we can see, filtered post, we could track it by ID actually. Or we could avoid this by just using like the following. I know it's not like the good practice, but just for testing purposes, why not? We just need to find out why it's not working. Okay, everything is possible at post. So maybe we haven't like, gotcha. At post. So it's actually, it should call the event. And here for submit on at post. Okay, it should be emitted. Well, now it seems to be working. Well, but for what we need like such decomposition into the multiple components, you see that now, from the template perspective, it's much simpler. Instead of like looking at each element, we already know that this component has the search bar, the cards, and the form for adding the new posts. And now we organize the components interaction between each other by using input and output bindings. So by using these decorators, we can introduce any properties that we want to use to perform the bind in terms of input and output. Okay, so for what's I was like showing that we could use the ViewChild or ViewChildren. Let's say we want to have a button that will actually put the like for anything that is created. And for that reason, we could use ViewChildren that I showed you before. And this is the query list of post components. Okay. Duplicate postcards. Okay. And what we do like the following: these postcards for each. And to see, we have all the methods that are listed actually in our post component, like here. And that's really interesting. Okay, let's see if it actually works. My name is property. No, that's the wrong component. Like all posts. Yeah, you see that's actually using the ViewChildren, we achieve like having the same functionality for all of the components. Okay, so before we move on, let's stop here. I just want to ensure that I'm going into the right direction for you. So, or maybe you have some proposals or comments or questions. So please, let's take a couple of minutes right now. If in case if you have something to ask, please go ahead.
Will you share these records on YouTube or somewhere? Or no? I mean,
Yeah, definitely. The session is recorded and it will be uploaded right away for the rest folks who wasn't be able to join. So don't worry.
Okay. And can I ask you about previous? We in Monday we also must have records about some homework, but I cannot find this video. I know that it's very short, but I cannot. I don't have access in Teams, but I don't know where I can find link in YouTube or somewhere else.
Alexei
so
didn't upload it yet, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he hasn't been uploaded for some reason, so needs to ask the person who was conducting the session to upload such a video to the channel. So I believe it should be recorded. In case if not, well, unfortunately, I'm well not able to help here. So you need to ask this person to upload the video. But don't worry, this session will be recorded. It is recorded and it will be uploaded right away whenever we stop the lecture, and the link will be posted as well.
And will you share this project or no?
Of course, I will
Yeah.
share a link to the repository.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? What actually means the word check in lifecycle hooks, and G after content check and G after view checked. That's a really interesting topic, but before we move to it closely, let's consider the following. So now how we use the components. So actually we put the elements and we used everything that could be binded, right? What if we want something to be included inside the text? So you see that by default it's empty tag, but still it's been rendered in some structure. There is the possibility in Angular to include everything inside the text and display it properly. Let's assume that we want to put something inside the component. That's everything that is specified between the opening and closing tags. Let's say we have the text right here. But for now, nothing happens. But if you want this text to be displayed inside of our post component, we also need to include the special element that is called encapsulation. Once we included this element, you see that the text actually is displayed. So if you want to use the following structure, yeah, it's possible. And also, it's possible to have to organize this ng content. But I have to Google because, well, I haven't dealt with it for years. As you can see from the description, that is called a content projection. And I was talking about multi-slot. So what does it mean? It means that by default, everything that is put between the opening and closing tags will appear to the ng content. And there is the possibility to group the content by using some sort of attribute and name it somehow. Let's say we want to put the text and description separately from so let's say this is the title. And no, this is not the title, sorry. This is the title and this text. If we return back and here, I use the following element for the following purpose. This is the special element that is used in case if you don't want to create extra DOM elements. So actually, this is like the wrapper. In this case, let's see. I already wrapped the following content between the P element. I don't want to create the P element separately. I just want to pass text. And for such purpose, I use ngContainer, which creates no elements, but it could be used for passing anything without additional wrappers. So to be sure that I did it correctly, not actually. So the P question. Okay, so if we deal with the P element, I didn't include anything. Okay. But I could use the following. Title and text. Okay, let's try with the elements. Let's try to wrap this as P. Because I haven't worked with it for years actually, but it could be useful in case if you want to create some sort of components, especially presentation components or DAP components, and that could be used for instead of passing each time and having the mapping logic, you could just use the content projection. But well, honestly, I haven't dealt with it in my daily basis. but just to show you that there is such possibility to pass anything between. So I believe that I'm not mistaken, but yeah, for some reason it doesn't work. Yeah, single slot, it's quite easy. I know that. It's just everything that is we put between our tags. But in case if we need multi-slot, question, okay, gotcha. I need to do the following. Yeah, great. And even though if we return the G container, yeah, you see that we have extra paddings just because we included another element, and we have actually two piece element nested. So you see, we use content projection to pass the content in the following way. So you could use your the benefits of component projection if you need to create a template for something, and you don't want to pass complex data using the property binding. You want like have a template for anything. It could be useful. Getting back to the initial question about content checked and view checked. So for now, it could be it could make a bit sense for you, since we just distinguished that content is actually everything that is included inside ng content. Like here inside a feed, sorry, not feed, the post, we have the ng content. Whenever the content has been initialized, the ng content in it has been fired. Whenever the full view has been initialized, the ng after view init is used. And your question about content checked or view checked, each of these two lifecycle hooks is called each time the change detection is triggered. What's the change detection is? This is the internal mechanism that is used to distinguish, so something definitely has been changed inside the component, and we need to re-render our component. Remember, whenever we're added something to the form, you see that the change detection actually made its work. We see that something has been changed in the model, and that's why it's called re-render. So usually these two lifecycle hooks, referring to the question in G after view checked, and in G after content checked. Yeah, definitely content check has been called first, and then after view check. So these two methods are being called each time when the change has been triggered, the change detection. It could be triggered by anything. Whenever you click the button, whenever you perform some action, this how the change detection works by default. Well, I don't see the change detection in your course roadmap, but if you're interested in it, we could organize the separate session. Just let me know in case if you need so. By default, as I mentioned, the change detection could be triggered by anything in terms of user action. So if you want to prevent such behavior, especially if we're dealing with presentation components, we need to use the following property that accepts two values, default and onPush. Default is used by default, definitely. But we want to use on push. So what does it mean? Whenever something is changed in terms of input binding, the change detection for this particular component will be triggered. So it doesn't matter what else was changed within our application. It will only compare the input property. And most important, it will compare only the reference for the property or value, whether it's a primitive. Because if we, okay, I also can demonstrate it, I believe. So like post and like post. So let's check the feed component. This post. Yeah, we see that we refer to the following. Yes, we refer to the object and we mutate in the property. But yeah, I see that for some reason, even though everything is changed, I still see the changes. Well, that's actually quite interesting because, yeah, if I remember previously, for some reason also I wasn't able to post anything. I don't know why, maybe it's some sabotaging. But yeah, the inputs binding, if it's changed this reference, it should trigger the change detection actually. But if not, so nothing will happen. And each time when the change detection cycle appears, these two methods listed will be invoked, but usually it's not in use if we consider the regular usage of the Angular on the real life scenario. So if we refer to our previous lecture, so I believe there is the link to the slides, I marked commonly used lifecycle hooks in bold. For it's ng on changes, ng on init, after unit, and ng on destroy. On changes. That's quite interesting. So it's invokes each time if something is changed in terms of input property. If it's changed, and join changes has been called, and it could be useful if you want to reflect to some changes. And join init, it's quite simple. It calls only one single time. Whenever all the input bindings have been resolved, that's really important because let's say if we want to access the input property from somewhere, let's say we have constructor here. And if we want to refer to the post, it will not happen because post will not be initialized yet. If you want to do so, if you do want to have access to input properties, you need to use lifecycle hook. If we need to do it each time it's changed, then you need to use on changes. If you just need to do it one single time, we'll use only one lifecycle hook, which is commonly used and which is on init. And inside lifecycle hook, we could easily refer to our post. So please remember because it's quite important. I'm going to return back. Okay. Well, I believe for now it should be enough because for today I don't want to give a deeper dive. I know that there are lots of information today. It could be quite tough to memorize all of them, but here I marked the most commonly used lifecycle hooks. And usually ng do check, after content check, it's usually used if you have your own change detection implementation. In this case, yeah, you need these methods, but most likely you don't want to implement your own change detection mechanism, That's why most likely you don't need to memorize all of them. Not sure if I answered the initial question fully, but at least I tried with the bare minimum for better understanding. Well, so I see that we're already like having lots of time. Yeah, change detection is pretty confusing. It would be awesome to cover it in the course later. Okay, definitely. If you need to have a bit of understanding of it, let's have a separate session within our course. I will try to find a possible time slot for you. Or we could refer it later on, whenever I will cover additional workshop. Why not? But still, it's quite confusing and it's quite important topic, but we haven't included in our course schedule because our main focus, our main goal is to focus on practical topics that is used mainly for creation of the Angular application. So if you see that during the course you lack of some materials for lectures, so please let's ask organizers or mentors to provide some extra materials if you want to cover some additional topics. Well, so once we were implementing the following app, we didn't cover such topics as directives, but I believe that it could be simple. But anyway, let's take some time to it. First of all, what the component is? Component, actually, if you remember from the lecture, is the combination of two building blocks. First is the component class, which is used to hold all the logic to describe the methods, the data that is used, and the component template. So actually components consist of two items, class and the template. But anyway, what the directive is? Directive actually is the component without the template, without its own template. So if well, I'm not sure what we can do in terms of our application using directives. So in the examples, if maybe you remember, so I used directives to demonstrate the capabilities of transforming some sort of elements. Yeah, just I wanted you to give me some time. I want to show the examples one more time. Okay, so the most common way of using directives is changing the behavior of the elements. And in case if you see that actually there are lots of elements that are completely different, but you want to imply some general behavior to it, so the directive could be used. Well, honestly, directives are also like not such commonly used as the components itself. But let's assume that you want to implement the tooltip. So if you don't know what the tooltip is, just for your reference, so the tooltip is like the following mini pop-up that it appears to have some instructions or descriptions for the element, which in the case when it's not quite obvious for the user. So that's one of the most common cases when you likely want to use directive, because the tooltip could be used for anything. It could be used for button, for text, for any other element. But you don't want to create every component for such cases. You want to have the general behavior for everything. So that's why the directive could be used in this case. So actually, what does it mean? Well, I'm not quite sure whether we could implement it within our app. I have no idea which functionality to do with directive here. But we could refer to the examples to see how we can do it if you want to implement the tooltip. So now I'm checking the chats again. Companion change detection as spell. Aha. So to manually call the change detection. Well, let's maybe leave it for the separate session because we're already like running out of time. And again, if we have the separate session, let's cover all the topics regarding change detection within it. Okay, directives. I want just to refer to my example. Let's see. We want to implement the tooltip. What actually we need to do? I'm just trying to find my IDE with the examples. Okay, here it is. And here is the attribute directive. Let's say we want to see highlight on hover. Okay. So basically that structure is more or less similar to what we want to have. Whenever we're highlighting some of the elements, we want to display some sort of template, some sort of text. Whenever we're highlighting, we're triggering the listeners of the events. And since we're dealing with directives, we're not able to do it from the template since we want to apply the behavior for every single element. And we don't need to define the event listeners each time. We can use just the method inside the directive and call use host listener. That will allow you to create an event listener not using the template itself. So here actually what we need to do, we need to have 2 event listeners and some sort of flag that will be used for showing or not showing the elements. Actually, we could use some features from the structural directives. So if you remember the lecture, so if I'm not mistaken, let's maybe refer to directive and pipes. If I'm not mistaken, there is some info about structural directives and how it actually works under the hood. Yeah, so it's already mentioned in the lecture. Yeah, so the structural directive could be, some of the features at least, could be used for dealing with the tooltip. Well, I'm not sure which exact feature we could implement within our current app, but you could propose me in case if you want me to implement at least one directive within the following app. But okay, in case if it's quite clear for you, we could stop it right here. And listen to your questions if it's still any, because it's already about hour and 40 minutes past, and I know you're a bit tired. Me too. For actually, okay. Waiting for your comments. What we're going to do? Are we going to deal with the directives example, or everything is clear? Please ask me whatever questions in terms of today's session. Okay, so please ask me something. I want to believe that everything is clear, but maybe you have something to ask me, or you want to ask me to implement to show how it looks on practice. I really want you to ask me something.
Hello. I want to ask a question. So I have some nested components, like not one parent and child components, and I have to send not to parent component of my next parent component. It's okay, and sometimes it's I have to do like emitted this data twice.
So could you
It's clear.
please expand on that? Am I right that you want to pass some data from child component to the parent one?
Yes, not one parent, and after in this it's like next parent. That's it's nested components, like not one flat.
Parent of the parent.
Yes.
So yeah, actually, that's a big problem in case if you have the level of the nested component more than one. And if we just use the internal Angular features, it will look like the following. So first you need to pass to the child component, and from this child to another one. That's a big problem. So for such purposes, to resolve this problem, the state management is introduced, and you have the separate module in terms of the state management and JRX, but which is the wrapper of the Redux. I know that's for someone it's good, like the new words, but don't worry. The state management is going to solve this issue. Instead of like, in brief, what's the concept is, instead of having the state for each component that's you need to pass over and over again, you're going to have one global state that each could be passed to anything that is needed. So instead of avoiding the hell with like the tree of property bindings, you could handle with the state in a separate place. So it could be a state management like Redux or NGRX, or it could be a service. If you remember, so I'm not quite sure whether you already like deal with the services, if you already watched the lectures, but just in case. A service is like the TypeScript class that is used for creation of a third-party logic. And there is one more cool feature of it. The service is a singleton, which means that the only one instance of the service is created in case if you provided it once. So because a service is a singleton, we can use services for holding some sort of state. So for state management, actually we have two ways how to deal with that. We could use service to hold the state, and we could use the state management solution for such purposes, and it depends on the complexity. So in case if your state is quite simple and you don't have complex logic, perhaps services will be enough. In case if it's quite complex and it's caused some sort of side effects, so in this case, NGRX should be used. But don't worry, this topic will be already covered. So this is the solution in case if you want to pass some data deeper. So I believe I answered your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. You're welcome. Another one. How can we create tooltip with directive if it has not a template? So that's the whole point. That's the directive actually. So this is just a TypeScript class. It's Yeah, definitely. It doesn't have its own template, but it could be attached to some template, and that's the point. So component is the TypeScript class and a template, and directive has no its own template. It could be used to be attached to something. So whenever we attach the directive by calling it a name, this directive will have the following template whenever it's used. And that's why I mentioned the tooltip, because it's a great example where you most likely need to use the directive. In case if you want to show something like you have for, let's say, maybe I already closed it. So maybe there is a question with how actually we can create this this block. So maybe here is the confusion. So maybe you thought that this is the template. Okay, so in this case, you can do the following. So if I'm not mistaken, you could use ng template. If you remember, ng template by default is not being displayed in the DOM unless you need to use it. So here you could specify whatever you want. In case if you want to see the tooltip. Yeah, definitely. Maybe it will be better to use like a separate component for such purposes. Well, not to create like this super complex. Maybe we could refer to the material to see how it actually implements right here. So if we view the code, we could actually see that the tooltip is not a separate class. This is the directive. And the directive is actually rendering the following element in the top of the following one. And if we refer to the examples from the lecture, we could easily use renderer 2 to manipulate with such things. One more life hack for you, in case if you don't like familiar with how they actually some sort of functionality work in library or framework, you want to find out how to use it in depth, in depth and details, you could refer to the source code of this repository. It's not a common use case, but sometimes if you do researching and you encounter some specific problems and you don't quite sure in terms of capabilities of such functionality, you could refer to the source code examples. But here, what we want to do, if we want to show some sort of the template, we can use renderer 2. Well, actually, that's not quite well. I'm going to reveal the source code of one of the projects. Yeah, because well, I also have the tooltip implemented just to save some time. Okay, so let's wait a bit more because we definitely have the tooltip. Okay. What is important here? Yeah, definitely. So it's actually used the renderer that is used as the dependency to append or to remove child, depending on the condition. In case if we want to show the pop-up, we need to use like some sort of element to be appended. And to do so, let's see from here example. We use ng template. If you remember, ng template is not displayed by default, but we could refer to it and add it later. So yeah, that's why that's how we achieved achieve such result. Even though it's quite confused here that the tooltip has no any templates, we still can use the pieces of templates that is defined in the components where we're going to use it. So that's how it actually works. So I believe your initial question was also answered. Okay, great. Anything else to ask for today? One, two, three. Okay, no more questions. I don't see from the participants and chats. Anyway, if you feel like I remember the open questions for today that was raised. So we're going to refer to later on. Whenever I found the suitable information for open questions, I remember that the question was with view encapsulation and something else. Yeah, I'm going to review what was posted to the chat and get back to you later on. But anyway, if you feel like not everything that you was curious about was like highlighted on the following session, please remember to tag me on the Discord and ask a question. I will try to take care of it. But if you don't have anything else to highlight, I propose to wrap up today's session and to wish you a good luck and say thank you for participation. So I believe that it was quite useful for you and you take your time productively. Okay, great. Again, thanks everyone for your attention and have a great evening.
Thank you, Pavel.